All right, hey guys, this is Mr. Sisson and Mr. Lou, and we're going to work through what you guys did yesterday with building your strong house, the strong structure to your thesis, claim, and evidence that you had. So we're just going to walk through step by step and kind of point out the things that we like, maybe point out some questions that you may have to work on, and kind of go from there and give you something to work with and to build from. So we'll just go one by one. We'll start with this one. The thesis for this one is, during the Cold War in the space race, the United States of America explored, exchanged, and encountered a perpetual technology evolution. So when we look at that thesis, we see the words that you want to see in there: explored, exchanged, and encountered. One issue with this, it's not, maybe you don't have to change it, but what I do see is that you don't really get to elaborate on those things very much. And so hopefully that comes whenever we get to the claims, that we'll see those themes explored, like they explored technology, they exchanged technology. So we'll see. We'll work through it. The first claim down here, it says the Cold War encountered, explored, and exchanged military technology to cause a perpetual technological evolution. And so this is going to deal with a specific type of technology, military. And so that's good too. They still have all three verbs there, and maybe that's too much. Maybe they just need to explore military technology to keep it a little simpler. The space race encountered and exchanged technological advancements to cause perpetual technological evolution. So I guess where this gets a little bit more individualized is the space race. It's a little bit more specific. But again, you see all three things, and maybe you guys have a plan for that, but that would be something that I would consider, breaking those up. And the last one is the technologies coming out of the Cold War caused a perpetual and space race. So this claim is basically your thesis, that there was a perpetual technology evolution, and that's basically the same thing you're saying here. So this claim probably needs to be switched out for something a little bit more specific. We'll keep moving. They don't have as much evidence down there, and so this would be something that you'd want to build up to support those claims.
Maybe the lack of clarity in the claims is the reason that their evidence is where it's at. And I think if they focus their claims a little bit more, there's enough in here. Mm-hmm. It seems like you're trying to do everything at once in your claims, so that would be my advice.
Yep. All right, so the next one. Mexican and Irish immigrants came into the U.S. and both encountered obstacles getting here and being here, but they received a new life. So,
ooh, that might be a good place to use the word exchange.
Yes.
They exchanged the old world
for a new
life, something like that.
That's good. That's good. It's the same kind of wording, but you'll be able to fit into the theme more. So that thesis, we've got two specific groups of people, and I'll be interested to see how those play out in the claim, because you do have a lot of like Mexican and Irish immigrants. They encountered obstacles getting here and being here. So getting here and being here. So you have a lot of things that you're going to have to work out because you've got twos in a couple different spots. So we'll see how that works. First claim, Mexican and Irish immigrants came into the U.S. So this will probably be pretty easy to demonstrate. What you'll have to ask is, well, we'll look at the rest of them, but if this claim standing alone by itself isn't very strong, is that fair?
I would agree with that.
Because this is pretty common knowledge, and we know that because the type of people we're around all the time. And so you may want to specify this, and maybe you do on some other ones, but this would be a claim that I would revise or change altogether. Mexican and Irish immigrants encountered obstacles. What are you going to say?
Well, one thing they might want to do is, so you might want to substitute this claim, encountering obstacles. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you might have a claim that they encountered obstacles. You might have this one changed to they overcame those obstacles. Mm-hmm. So you can see how those two things are related, but it's a lot more interesting than this. Mm-hmm. I mean, this will be in there, but it's not like anybody's going to go, oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, they came to the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And then when Mexican and Irish immigrants received a new life, that'll be the good thing about these claims is they do push towards your thesis, and so that's good.
I would change the word received with built.
Built, yeah, I like that.
Or you could use that exchange terminology that we talked about up here.
Built a new life. One thing that's cool down here, they've got some evidence that talks about the potato famine in Ireland.
Oh.
That's really interesting and really important.
Yep, and reading this evidence right here, that makes me think about what this claim really is.
Yep.
And what this claim really is that specific factors drove immigrants to come to the U.S.
Right.
That's what this claim is,
Right.
if you're talking about the potato famine here. It's not just that they came, but they came for specific reasons. And if you change that claim, that makes a lot of sense.
And then just touching on this one, this is cool that you've obviously got a primary source in there. I'm guessing. Yeah, we came by steerage on a steamship, talking about, I'm guessing that's Irish immigrants that came in 1906. So they've got their primary sources. And some of these other ones may be primary sources too. What you may need to do here is get a secondary source on this claim, because it looks like these may all be primary accounts. So that might be something
Is
to do.
this? I got a room in a house, and so I'm thinking 1982 that this is about Mexican immigrant.
Maybe that's what I was trying. Either that or maybe an older person recounting.
And if that's the case, then this is good stuff here.
Yeah.
This is really supporting your claim if you've got evidence from both groups.
Yeah, that's true. And you'll need to work to be balanced to make sure you hit both groups of people. All right. The League of Nations was set up for failure after Woodrow Wilson died and when the U.S. refused to join the League. So that is very specific. I like that thesis, and that's going to be interesting to see that argued. I think that's a good one. First claim, the League of Nations was unsuccessful. Okay, so this would be kind of the same example as the last group. This won't, it's maybe a little bit more arguable. But the League of Nations failed as an organization, but it led into other things. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking in circles here. What do you think about that one?
Well, it depends. What's the evidence? What's the evidence that you're talking about? The U.S. and the other two power countries
Didn't join.
Okay, so I'm looking at the source, johnandclaire.net. That's not a very credible source.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very...
So I don't see that you have a lot of... this is true. This is true that the League of Nations was unsuccessful, but you haven't really proved that with your evidence. And I'm wondering, let's see what your other claim is. Yeah. Woodrow Wilson died before completing his mission. So in your evidence, you're going to have to prove that his personal mission was to get that thing going. Woodrow Wilson, again, biography.com, not very... It's okay. It's all right.
Better than johnandclaire.net, but it's not. And history.com. One thing that would help, if you wanted to say this was his mission, if you had a primary source account of Woodrow Wilson saying that was his goal.
Did he give a speech in which he said that was his goal?
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that you're going to be looking for. So let's go back to the thesis now. The League of Nations was set up for failure. Now, when you tell me that it was set up for failure, are you telling me that the people who planned the League of Nations said, "Hi, we're going to start the League of Nations, and we're going to have it be a failing institution"? Because that's what it means to me as a reader when I see it was set up for failure. So I think you want to say something slightly different. After Woodrow Wilson died and when the U.S. refused to join the League. I'm wondering about the deeper significance of this thesis statement. I'm wondering what's really going to drive interest in this. You're talking about world peace. You're talking about the ability of nations to cooperate. So I would think a thesis statement that said something like, the ability of the world to cooperate to solve problems was irreparably harmed when the League of Nations failed. Seems like a better thesis statement. And then in your claims, you can talk about things like Woodrow Wilson dying. But that's what I think. So some of this is like, where are you looking? Are you looking here or are you looking out? And I think this one, your focus, a shift of focus would you'd benefit from that.
Good. All right. This one. With freedom on their mind, people from all over Germany immigrated to the U.S. They found a free land but encountered harsh attempts to restrict a major part of their culture, alcohol. So this is a really specific thesis. I can see you're going to be talking about German immigration and the effect that prohibition is going to have on them. This is good.
There's a lot to like about this thesis.
So the first claim, alcohol is and was a big part of German culture. Well, that's going to be arguable. That's good. This is something that's really going to ground the rest of it, because if alcohol is not a big part of German culture, then prohibition wasn't going to be make that big of an impact on them. The next one, prohibition of the 1920s was unsuccessful. Okay, so this is a specific claim. You're talking about prohibition, and this is true. But what you have to ask is, does that support your thesis? Because your thesis is talking about how Germans were found a major part of their life restricted by prohibition. And so then if you say prohibition was unsuccessful, is that really fueling your thesis at all?
I think if they restated it to something like, I think they mean something like prohibition's restrictions on freedoms was un-American, maybe something like that.
And that's, whenever we looked at your evidence down here, you talk about how there are distilleries and people did things in secret.
Oh, okay.
And so maybe what you talk about here is that Germans had to break the law to carry out their normal way of life.
And then your larger argument would be like, it's not really good if you have laws that everybody is breaking. And then that does point back to your thesis if you talk about a free land.
Right.
So I like it a little bit more after looking into it. I think maybe it's a rewording issue. Again, this is some pretty darn solid work here.
This is good. This is good. Prohibition was allegedly an attack towards the Germans, anti-German, I don't know what that is, maybe sentiment, anti-Germans tried to convince people that Germans corrupt America, and they have reached dangerous levels.
Okay. Interesting.
So this is good. I'm interested in what your sources are down here. We have German enemies in this country too.
Good stuff here.
Worst allowed. Yeah. Okay.
Anti-alcohol crusader were often fueled by xenophobia.
Ooh,
you guys are. This is
good.
Yeah. Well, this is
really good.
Yep.
Really good. Okay. Through innovation and aerial reconnaissance, they had to explore Normandy before they could start the invasion, and encountered the Atlantic walls as they stormed the beach, exchanging lives and gunfire for a greater cause. Okay. Do you have any thoughts of this, Mr. Liu?
Well, it's a little bit over wordy for a thesis statement. When I read a thesis statement, I should feel the impact of what your argument is going to be. I think that I talked to this group and we talked about rephrasing it a little bit to say something. I like your focus on aerial reconnaissance because that fits with exploration.
Yeah, that's new.
Allies used aerial reconnaissance to explore the beach of Normandy before the invasion started. As a result, they encountered few surprises, and I think I think that that's what you're focusing on. So aerial recon, pictures of how the defenses look like, okay, and evidence. Okay, you're using some photos here. You're talking about photos of their emplacements, barricades and spikes. Now, I would say if you've got a photo of their defenses and I guess those are separate things. What do we have here? Assaulted German resistance and defenses. I would tie that again. Something like aerial reconnaissance enabled them to. And let's see what the evidence is here. On June, by dawn, 1,800 parachutes were already on the ground. So what I would expect is a lot of your work will be focused on the technology of aerial reconnaissance, the kinds of cameras that were developed, how the planes flew low enough, maybe some of the costs associated with it, how many aerial reconnaissance fighters were killed along the way.
And this is going to be an easy fix, but in your thesis, when you say through innovation aerial reconnaissance they had to explore, I don't know who they is.
Yeah, the first time you definitely want to use the word allies there.
Right. All right. The assistance of animals in World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War saved lives of humans?
Very,
good.
very clear.
Specific, concise. That's good.
Yep.
So your claims. Animals, dogs specifically, saved many lives during World War I. Animals such as pigeons helped save lives during World War II. And just as land animals helped during wars, aquatic animals helped during the Vietnam War.
Yeah, this project is really set up to succeed,
Right.
just because of the way that you can focus on one animal at a time. 3 animals, 3 wars, and then evidence to support. If you find evidence, and from what I've seen, I think you're in good shape.
Yeah, you're in good shape. Okay. Weather and its effects have played a major role in shaping U.S. history. I think I like that thesis.
I like it a lot.
Yeah,
I like it a lot. You feel like you're like an NFL commentator.
Yeah,
I like how it looks.
really
I like how it
good.
reads.
They just know how to play the game.
That's-
The first claim, the Dust Bowl pushed people into exploring new places because of the horrible disaster. Well, it's easy to see how that fits with your thesis. Your thesis says it shaped U.S. history.
Yep.
And here you're not saying, oh, the Dust Bowl was a weather event. You're saying the Dust Bowl pushed people to move.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Mr. Sisson, I couldn't agree more at this point. It seems like what they've got here are 3 very clear claims,
Yep.
and you can see how each claim, if it's true, if the quarterback can get back there and get settled into the pocket, and if these claims are true, all of them, of course that's true.
Right.
So it's structured to succeed.
Good. That's good. All right. Baseball faced a crisis when all of their players went to fight in World War II, and the team owners explored women's baseball and replacement players to save the sport. I like this addition. I don't know that I'd seen that before, that you're saying the team owners explored, and you're making it a little bit more specific than just baseball. I think that makes things a little bit more clear.
I think there's something that's missing, though, because you're saying that baseball faced a crisis, but I think your argument is actually going to be that they survived the crisis, and in fact maybe used the crisis to strengthen the sport in general. So might be something. I guess you did say to save the sport, so it is in there.
So baseball faced a crisis when World War II started. Okay, that's the crisis that you're talking about, and you've got some research down here, is Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio. These are the big stars of baseball had to go fight in World War II.
Wow. Could you imagine that with this generation of people?
No, LeBron James is gone.
LeBron James has been recruited. He is a paratrooper.
Yeah.
But that's this generation, folks. These people are so awesome. Wait till we learn about World War II. So awesome.
Yeah. So you've got some good things to talk about that, and down here, this is a strong piece of evidence that I really like. That during World War II, the sales were half of what ticket sales, I'm guessing, is what you're talking about.
Yep.
Were half of what they are
Totally.
when the guys came back.
And it points right back to crisis.
Perfect.
That is a crisis. You've proven that what it was a crisis, and then your later evidence, which you're probably working on, is going to be right here, and here, and it's going to be proof that what they did actually saved baseball.
That's good. All right. Entering the Vietnam War was the biggest mistake in foreign policy in the 20th century.
Definitely a bold statement.
That is a bold statement. So your first claim is Americans explored a new country, political approaches, and new military techniques.
Okay, so you're talking about the United States in Vietnam. They explored that. So the question is, if you prove that they did this, if you prove that they explored this, does that prove that it was the biggest mistake? And I think that the short answer is no. So you need to think about this claim. Second claim, Americans encountered new people and culture. Again, if they did in fact encounter new people and culture, and they did, does that prove that it was the biggest mistake? Let's see if this one's a little closer. Americans exchanged military strategies with South Vietnam to fight communism in the Vietnam War. Again, if this is true, does it mean that this is true? So I would say your research, your evidence is good. You have a lot of names here, which is good. There should be a lot of resources on this topic, but I think you need to reorient your claims to say, okay, this claim, if it's true, it needs to support the thesis. It has to prove it.
Yeah, those pillars need some work on the last one to make sure they're holding up that thesis. The Wright brothers never could have done what amazing things they did without encountering many problems and finding new ways around them by exchanging and exploring new ideas with other scientists to overcome those problems. What do you think?
So it's a little wordy. It takes me a little bit long to grasp what you're saying. So I think that we could take this. The Wright brothers, basically, you're saying the Wright brothers never would have invented the airplane if they hadn't. But I do love the way that you worked in exploring new ideas with scientists. I like encountering problems, and I think that's good.
Yeah, I think you're right. If you just change the amazing things they did to the Wright brothers never could have produced the first airplane without encountering many problems.
Or something like the Wright brothers' world-changing invention was a result of encounters with problems and exploring new ideas to overcome the problems they encountered. Something like that would probably be a little tighter.
Yeah. The Wright brothers explored new ways to design their aircraft differently than previous attempts in order to achieve success. So it was a success.
Here we go.
Yeah. The Wrights recognized that each of these areas had to be successfully addressed to build a working airplane. I think one of the things that I talked with this group about is the good thing about these is it should open up more research for them. These areas, well, what are these areas? Because obviously airanspace.edu is saying these areas were what had to be addressed for it to work.
So we need to know what these areas are.
We need to know what these areas are.
Yeah. But I think most things are pretty good. You know what we're going to do? We're going to half this up. Okay, so this is the end of part 1.